everyone. Welcome to Conscious Parenting. I'm Andy Kolodny, mother of 4 young adults and a certified conscious parenting coach. As a mom of 4, I've experienced most things, and very few things will surprise me when it comes to parenting. I'm also the founder of Parent Do-Overs. Notice the emphasis on do-overs, because while I am a certified parenting coach, I am human, and no one can be conscious 100% of the time. Spoiler alert, there is no such thing as the perfect parent, and there are no awards for parenting. Aiming for perfection is a sign that you might actually be an unconscious parent. Many parents get stuck in a cycle of parent regret. So taking a do-over allows us to have compassion for ourselves and move forward with the tools to do it better the next time. People ask me, what does conscious mean? Being conscious means that we are focused and aware, and we show up for ourselves and our family in a calm and grounded way, regardless of what's going on around us. When we are unconscious, we tend to be on autopilot, repeating our daily cycles without thought. Think of the days you drive home, pull into your driveway, and you have no idea how you got there. Or the days when you walk into a chaotic situation at home and you immediately escalate up to the level of chaos. This only causes the temperature in the house to rise further. Being a conscious parent means that we are able to slow down and assess our surroundings before reacting. Conscious parenting is based on Eastern philosophy blended with Western psychology. The focus is on the development of each individual child versus parenting to the norms and benchmarks that society has deemed normal for all. Traditional parenting is often based on hierarchy, where the parent is always right and the child's behavior is managed through control and fear. The conscious parent values that the child is part of the relationship and wants to connect with their child to build a lasting relationship. My vision for Parent Do-Overs is to create a world of parents where children can develop into their most authentic selves and receive love, acceptance, and support from their parents. Sadly, I personally know a few bright, accomplished children who have been disowned by their parents for not fitting into their image of normal. For more information comparing conscious parenting to traditional parenting, please visit my Parents Do-Over website. There are 3 things all humans want. Can you see me? Do you hear me? Am I worthy? We all want to be seen and recognized. When I was a child, my parents' generation had the saying, children should be seen and not heard. I also grew up in a school system that was extremely rigid, and we wouldn't dare to question our teachers. I see the impact of this in other areas of my life today. Parents and families come in all shapes and sizes. Whether you have children or not, everyone is a parent because we are the hardest parent on ourselves. Think about how you speak to yourself. Would you be friends with someone who spoke to you the way you speak to yourself? It's interesting that we need degrees, certifications, or licenses for almost everything we do, but nothing is needed to become a parent. There is not even an age specification. A conscious parent must first be a conscious and resilient self. One of the most important traits of a conscious parent is resilience and the ability to pause and down-regulate when we feel triggered. On this show, we will be speaking about the basics tied to parenting struggles, but also sharing some difficult parenting topics because someone out there is experiencing the same thing, and hopefully they will feel less alone after today's segment. I want to introduce you to Carli from the UK. Carli was in a relationship, and she was so excited to finally build a life with her male partner. They decided to have a baby together, and then she learned that this man was not what he seemed. She had to quickly pivot, and she became a single mother and a conscious parent overnight. Carli is a superstar. She's raising a beautiful 2-year-old daughter, and she's here to tell us her story. Hi, Carli. Thanks for coming on to our show today. Tell us how this all began.
Hi, Andy. Thank you so much for having me. How did it all begin? I'll take you a little bit back. I was born in South Africa, and my parents emigrated when I was 7 years old to the UK. I lived in the UK from the age of 7 to the age of 29. And so I really lived in the UK and felt British, so to speak. But I always had this affinity to South Africa. It was somewhere where we used to go on holidays. I had really, really great experiences, particularly with Cape Town, and a lot of family there. And I made friends over the years. And that part of the story will become relevant in a second. In my working career, I started out and I kind of moved my way up the ladder. And at the time, I was 29 and I was offered a secondment to go and work in Singapore in Asia for 2 years, which was a fantastic opportunity. And I really thought it would be amazing for my personal growth, my career. There was a lot of travel, and obviously it was living away from home where I was used to, home being London and my family. And I went out there all guns blazing and gave it everything I had. And at the end of the 2-year contract, I wasn't ready to come home yet. And I really, really wanted to, I just had this dream that, of living in Cape Town. Over the years, as I said, we'd been on many holidays there, and I just, I had such a love for the country, and being born there, I really kind of thought, I wouldn't say missed out on something, but, I always had at the back of my mind, what if? And I suppose in a cliched sense, that what if was, I hadn't met anyone yet, and all my friends were already married or getting engaged or onto their first babies, and I was kind of nowhere. I'd done the career path, I'd done the traveling, and I just had this what if moment, that what if the man of my dreams is in Cape Town? And I took a huge risk and a huge jump, and Singapore had given me this new lease of life, this new confidence, to be, a single female, and living away from her family. And I kind of thought Cape Town would be a soft landing. I had family there. I had friends because I'd been going for many years. And anyway, I did manage to secure a job and a flat, and I landed in Cape Town in April 2018. And I was elated. I was firstly so proud of myself. I really was so confident, and I stepped off the plane and I just had this feeling, I'm going to meet him. I know it. And 3 weeks down the line, I was with a girlfriend, and we had decided to go shopping, as girls do, and we were parking our car. I was driving, and at exactly the same moment, this car was parking in the space parallel to me, and he was the most beautiful man I had ever seen. And my girlfriend and I were being really immature schoolgirls and laughing and giggling and saying, oh, he's so handsome, and I wonder what he's doing here, and do you think he has a wife, and all those silly things that girls do. And I did something totally on me, and I can only put it down to having this new sense of freedom, this new confidence. And I said to my girlfriend, I am going to write a note on and leave it on his windscreen. And she still tried to put me off. Don't do that. You don't know who he is, And I said, come on, he's so good looking. Of course he's going to be fine, and if he's not interested, he'll throw it away. And I went into the first shop that I found and asked them for some till roll, and their pen. And I wrote my number, and I left it on his windscreen. And that evening he texted, and we went on our first date the following evening. And it was a whirlwind romance. I would say I fell in love really hard and really quickly. I think that he did, so he said. And I moved in with him very, very quickly. It was about 6 months. And the whole thing was very fast. We had always spoken about having a family, and it was one of the first things I discussed with him when we started dating, because he was 14 years older than me. So at 32, him being 14 years older than me, just meant if he wasn't prepared, and it was, totally his prerogative to not want children at that age. And he didn't have children. But if he, wasn't interested, then I, would have to have said, that's absolutely fine and no hard feelings, but we can't continue. But he promised me that was what he wanted. He wanted the family he never had. He had come from a very abusive background. And I really had huge admiration for him for wanting to change that background and that path that he had been on into putting it into his own child. The 3 years that we were together was really complicated. As soon as I'd moved in with him, things did, become a cyclical case of verbally abusive behavior, which kind of got progressively worse over time. But then there were really, really, really good moments. And I put it down to being I put it down to being a mistake. He was always extremely apologetic for the behavior that he would portray. And I forgave him. I believed that not everybody's perfect, and neither am I by any means. And, couples have disagreements, and being quite a naive person in a relationship, I'd never had one before, and with a man that was so much older than me, I really, really wanted to show him that I was mature enough to move forward and accept his apology and pass no judgment and move forward. We decided to have a child, which was really exciting because I had been, wanting to have a child for so long and start a family of my own. And when he had finally agreed, I was elated. I was really, really excited. I fell pregnant quite quickly. Little did I know COVID was round the corner, so it was a COVID pregnancy. And whilst he was, very good in front of others, home life during my pregnancy was very complicated. Things were getting progressively worse between us. I didn't know this at the time because I didn't quite know what to look for, but alcoholism was playing a huge role in our relationship, and being pregnant and having to deal with your partner who is passed out on the bed every night, was really hard. I didn't know what that was. I thought he was tired, so he told me. I had our baby 2 years ago. She's now a beautiful little 2-year-old with so much charisma. And it was a really, really exciting time to have our daughter and just be out of COVID times a little bit. My mum actually flew from London despite all the huge travel restrictions to be with us. But sadly, I lasted 6 weeks in his house, which was also my home. I lasted 6 weeks. His behavior got so progressively unhinged that the safety of not just myself, and I don't think I was thinking of myself ever, because I probably would have left sooner if I'd ever thought about myself. But when I saw the impact of his behavior on this beautiful, innocent, newborn baby, I knew that we were no longer safe, and it was time to leave. And so one thing led to another in that time, in those 6 weeks. It was behavior that I'd never seen before. I mentioned earlier that things were cyclical. So, in the past, we could have had a blowout and we could have resolved it for 2 or 3 months and been really, really happy. What was happening in 6 weeks was that it was constant toxicity, which was just not a positive way to start a child's life, a baby's life. On the day I decided to leave, I had, everything was very covert. I, didn't want him to see me on the phone. He didn't like me on the phone. Everything was very secretive. Anything that I did through WhatsApp, I had to make sure. In fact, sometimes I used to use different channels like Instagram, Messenger, and other channels, not WhatsApp, because he had made references to hacking into my things previously, particularly my phone. And I had to message my mum in London, to message her brother in South Africa to, code red. It's time to get her out, time to get me out, us out, myself and my daughter. My ex-partner had gone to work that day, the following day, and my family came in 2 cars, including my own. So we were 3 cars, and we packed everything of my daughters into whatever suitcases I could find. We also had a dog, which was actually a puppy, an 8-month puppy, golden retriever. We packed all her things, and I just took the bare minimum of my own. And we left that day. It took us 45 minutes to do a sweep of the house and get out. And that was the beginning of an 18-month legal nightmare that I had no idea I would ever experience in my life, or had ever seen such ugliness in my life, particularly in the context of it, being a brand new mother, having to protect a child when the other side is not. And I think there's, there was so many times and so much research that I've done in understanding what was going on. At one side, I was grieving for the relationship that was not what it appeared to be, and at the other, and on the other side, I had to be this strong new mother, and not allow my daughter to feel what I was going through, so that she could thrive in those very, very early days.
Carli, quick question for you. When you left with her being so little, and you were so brave in getting her out of there, and then I know there was this lengthy court case. Explain what happened on the day that you left and you were able to leave to go back to London, because I know that was a very important factor for you to be surrounded by family and a support system, which he had, you had mentioned to me he had removed from you in Cape Town.
Sure. So, I think, over our 3-year relationship, it was, a really slow, insidious way of isolating me from, what he did was isolating me from family and friends. I was extremely lonely, but when I had our child, it became very apparent to me how much support is actually needed, particularly being a new mother, then a new single mother. And, ultimately I needed to get home. And that was coming back to London, where my support system is. And whilst I did have a support system in Cape Town, with my uncle and my aunt, I think you need your mum. Everyone needs their mum, or, a parent or a caregiver that is important to them to help with their experience that they're going through. And at the time, again, naively, we were in the, just started legal proceedings. And I said to my lawyer at the time, I just want to go home. I can see that he is not going to make this very easy for us. He was already showing signs where he wouldn't contribute to things like maintenance, and he was already signed off as needing supervision for any visitation that he had, and mental health was becoming a huge issue. Alcohol was becoming a much bigger issue, obviously, as the stress was weighing on both of us. And in order to get out of the country, my legal team advised that the second parent would have to consent, number one, because you can't leave the country without both parents' consent. And my ex-partner refused any kind of consent, which wasn't a surprise. And failing that, we would have to go to court to ask a judge to allow us to leave. It took 18 months to get to court. My ex-partner stalled 3 court cases with, all the legal tactics that one would imagine happen. He had a very big team. I had a small team. And we waited 2 months. When we finally got to court and we had our 2 days in court, we had to wait 2 months.
Carli, I'm going to jump us forward a little bit because we're going to be running out of time soon. I know you're back in London now, and I know your daughter's thriving, and I know that everything legally worked out in your favor, which is fantastic. And I also know that you are just so much fuller than you were, because as you had mentioned, you were looking for love. And I feel like, we've talked and you have found, you've really filled in your own gaps. But I have a question for you. Do you have a coaching question for me now that you're in London with your parents and with your daughter? Do you have a coaching question for me?
Sure. Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me is knowing how to explain to my daughter who her father is one day, and I think I would never want her to feel unloved, but she's not going to be 18 for a very long time, and so how would you explain to a young girl when she's 8 or 10 or 12 who's asking about daddy? How would you explain to her where he is?
So the most important thing, it's a fabulous question. The most important thing is that she knows you're always open and available for these questions. That she should always come to you when she has questions, that you're there to answer the questions. The key thing is to always, be truthful, knowing the age that she's at. Give her an honest answer to an age that's specific, such as Daddy had some problems and we had to leave, and I wanted to have us around, Granny and Pops. You just keep it as Daddy had some problems, and then again, it's truthful. You end the conversation, and if she wants more information, she will ask. So the key thing is to be truthful, to say Daddy had some problems. We had to, I decided that it was better for us to be with Granny and Pops and around our family, and then sort of drop it at that. And then if she asks more, and she may be asking you these questions at about 3, and then as she gets older, the problems can become words like mental health. And then, she might be, at different ages, she might be asking different questions. But from a parenting point of view, you will see that families come in all shapes and sizes. Some children have no mother, have no father. It could be gay fathers, it could be gay mothers. And so I think in this day and age, it's really great that children are exposed to so many different types of families. And I know that your support system is incredibly strong. So she is supported more than many who have mom, dad, siblings, I know that you're all thriving, and I'm just so thankful and appreciate your bravery that you've come on with us today. And I'm sure we'll have you back because your story goes much deeper and continues. So if we get into more specific topics, we will absolutely have you back. Thanks again.
Thanks so much, Andy.
So in Carli's situation, her partner suddenly removed the 3 things we all crave. He diminished her by making her feel unseen, unheard, and unworthy. Carli found her inner strength, and when it was evident that her partner would never change, she knew she could only change herself and her future. Self-fulfillment is an integral part of being a conscious parent. It was a pleasure being here, and I look forward to seeing you all next month.